Hi, Katie. Meteorologist Dave Baker here on a Tuesday. This is October the 28th. Let's Talk Tropics is what you're watching here on YouTube. We have a massive hurricane that's now approaching land on the coast of Jamaica, western edge of Jamaica. And if you look there on the left side of your screen, winds are 185 miles per hour and the pressure's dropped to 892 on the millibar scale. So just to give you some perspective, the only hurricane I know of in the Atlantic Basin that went above 185 on the winds was Hurricane Allen back in 1980. And the Labor Day hurricane had a pressure of 892 millibars, so it's tied with the Labor Day hurricane, and that's a famous one that hit the Florida Keys back in the 1930s. But since then, we had Hurricane Gilbert in 88 that broke the Labor Day hurricane's pressure record, and then in 2005, we also had Rita and Wilma that ended up breaking those records. And Wilma went even farther and is still listed as the lowest pressure of any hurricane in the Atlantic Basin. But these 185 mile per hour winds, if this verifies at landfall, it could possibly be the strongest hurricane to ever make landfall in the Atlantic Basin, if not on the entire planet. So we're going to talk a lot about Melissa. And I'm going to show you some live webcams, if they're still up and running, down in Jamaica, just to show you what it looks like even 100 miles away. You got to remember, this island is only about 145 miles wide, maybe 50 miles up and down, north-south. So there's not a lot of hiding spots for this tiny island. And when you've got a hurricane like this coming across, this is going to be devastating. Real quick, hazy sunshine locally, and that hazy sunshine is going to stick around most of the day. But we've got a pretty strong cold front that's going to be coming in our direction. So I did want to mention the offshore waters just a little bit here. The reason is because today's offshore waters really aren't too bad, but we do have gale watches out. And so for tomorrow, you can see that some of these winds and seas are really going to be ridiculous out over the Gulf waters. So if you want to get your fishing in, you better do it before this evening, because things are going to go downhill from there. And a real quick look at our radar. The cold front itself is back over here, and it's going to continue to move off toward the southeast. You got some rains that are over Arkansas right now, but nothing that's bothering us here locally. And there's a look at the national satellite picture. And again, our cold front is making its way here across northern Texas, and the upper part of that trough is also going to help out to bring a more of a northerly track to Hurricane Melissa that's down here in the Caribbean. So there's a look at the Gulf waters, and again, you can start to see the outflow around the west side of Hurricane Melissa. Some of our friends down in South Florida probably seeing the high cirrus clouds from that. The rest of the Gulf waters don't have any issues out there. Yucatan looks good. Bay of Campeche, western part of the Caribbean. I know our friends over in Belize and over toward the Yucatan here are breathing a sigh of relief, as they know that Hurricane Melissa is going to make a northward turn, which it's already started to do. You can see that on the western part of the Caribbean satellite along the Central American coast. And of course, it really stands out there on the Caribbean satellite, as the eye of the hurricane is going to be making landfall here within the next couple of hours or so. The rest of the Atlantic, for the most part, is quiet, and I don't expect anything to come around, and that's where Melissa is right now. Again, the only game in town, and really we're hoping that this is going to be the final hurricane of the 2025 season. So let's see what we've got going on. And again, these cameras might be behind a little bit. I'm recording this about 10:30, so this looks like it's about 20 minutes ago. And you can see the white caps. This is in Kingston. This is Kingston Harbor, and the onshore flow is pushing a lot of that water up into the bay there, and that storm surge is going to continue to pull in. And you got to remember that Kingston is about 100 miles away from the eye, so the water is going to continue to keep pushing in. This is another webcam that's in Kingston, Jamaica, and right there's a bridge that's under that water. And I wanted to point out to you that the water is flowing that way when usually it flows this way. So the rainfall is not moving the water. It's the storm surge pushing it off in the opposite direction. And the camera now is zoomed in. And again, It looks like it might be repeating some time here, maybe about 15, 20 minutes ago prior to my recording here. But a little while ago, I was watching, it looked like there was a reporter that was kind of hanging out there right next to the water. Very, very dangerous. Here's another shot of Kingston. Again, this might be about 15 to 20 minutes old from my recording here again. Time right now is about 10:35 on a Tuesday morning, but you can see the massive amount of water that's rushing by. It doesn't look like it's moving on to land just yet, but flooding is going to be a problem when it comes to the storm surge, and also the flooding is going to be a big problem when it comes to the heavy rainfall. And then on top of that, you got those devastating winds that are going to be right around the center of circulation. Fortunately, the winds do kind of die down the farther away from the eye, and really these 185 mile per hour winds are going to be concentrated right around the center of circulation, probably go out about 4 or 5 miles, and then it starts to drop off. You probably get out about 50 or 60 miles, and then you're more into tropical storm strength. But these are the strongest hurricanes by pressure. Of course, we talked about Wilma, 2005. It surpassed Rita, that set the record early on in 2005, and you can see that Rita is now in 5th place. Gilbert, 888 millibars. Melissa is tied now with the Labor Day hurricane for 3rd, and then 5th place comes Rita back in 2005 with 895 millibars. So that's just some incredible drops of pressure. And to tell you the truth, I can't say I'm necessarily surprised that we have a hurricane of this strength in this area. This truly has been the one part of the Atlantic Basin that I've been the most concerned with because of the extremely warm waters and the extremely high heat content. And I said it all year, if we get any kind of tropical system in this area and the wind shear stops, you're going to have a monster. And that's exactly what we have here. And you can see the eye of the hurricane there getting very, very close to the coast of Jamaica, and it will probably make landfall here either during the 11 o'clock or the 12 o'clock hour here Central Time. There's the forecast path. We've got hurricane warnings that are up for Cuba. We've got hurricane warnings that are up now for the Bahamas, and then that's going to race its way off toward the northeast and still could be a major hurricane even as it reaches Cuba there. With very strong winds, but this is the 10 o'clock advisory. Those winds, 185 miles per hour, and it looks like it's now moving off to the northeast at 9. So it has picked up speed a little bit, which is good news because that moves it fast. Earlier it was only going about 3 miles per hour. That would have just been a buzzsaw staying over the same place for way too long. And again, it's going to be incredible to see what ends up being left with these 185 mile per hour winds. And you can see that the computer models are on top of each other, so it's pretty much solid that this is going to hit Cuba and the Bahamas. What's interesting here on the intensity scale is we can go all the way out to 60 hours, and we've got a number of hurricane models that are calling it to stay above a Category 4, and even going out to 60 hours, you can see the majority of them keep it as a major hurricane. It's not until about 3 days, which probably would make it past the Bahamas, before we really start to see the intensity dropping off. So again, history is being made, even though that this hurricane season has not really produced the numbers of named storms. We're still going to finish off very close to an average number. But when we talk about the accumulated value of all of the energy, the ACE value, that's going to be pretty high, a lot higher than what you would normally see when you only have 13 named storms in a hurricane season, and the majority of those were only tropical storms. But this is the 3rd Category 5 hurricane that we've had this season. And I was talking earlier with some of my team members and also some other friends that when I started working in meteorology back in the early 90s, Gilbert was the strong one, and the Labor Day hurricane. Those were kind of the thresholds, along with the Camille as being the strongest hurricanes. And Category 5s were pretty rare. And Hurricane Andrew came in 1992, but it wasn't upgraded to Category 5 until 2002. Kind of posthumously, it was upgraded to Category 5. So it was a number of years before we had a Category 5. 92, then we went to 98, which was Hurricane Mitch that hit Honduras. And then you got to work your way closer to 2005, where we had 4 Category 5 hurricanes occur. And this year, we've got 3 Category 5s, and we've pretty much had a Category 5 almost every single year since about, I would say, 2016, 2015, 2016, kind of in that range. And part of the reason, of course, we talk about those warmer temperatures of the Atlantic Basin that have been staying quite warm here over the last maybe 20, 30 years. And so when these tropical systems reach these very warm waters and this high heat content, remember I told you, all season long, this has been pretty much the area that I've been the most worried about. And of course, Jamaica is right there in the middle of all of that heat content. It's pretty much off the charts here to the west, and it was very close to this area here. And even when it lifts north of Jamaica, it still could hit a bit of an eddy of some high heat content. But really, all of this is premium fuel for a hurricane. And with the wind shear dropping off right around that center of circulation, it's managed to just continue to get stronger and stronger and deeper. We saw an eye wall replacement cycle overnight early this morning, and now that that has finished, you see how strong these particular hurricanes can get. So our prayers going out, obviously, to our friends in Jamaica and eventually into Cuba and the Bahamas, who are now anticipating this to come their way. So we're going to look at the hurricane models. And again, we're really not going to be able to show you anything different here. This forecast is pretty much set in stone. There it is in the offshore waters. And as we just advance this, you see that Cuba is next. And according to this model here, which is a hurricane-specific model, it still keeps the pressure down at 931, which would be a Category 4 hurricane. And then it would still be fairly strong, even starting to interact with some of the wind shear and the drier air on the western side. The Bahamas could see a hurricane with pressures in the 940, 950 range, which is still a major hurricane. And then after that, it moves out into the Atlantic Basin. A couple of others of our hurricane models here. We'll just kind of go through it. Pushed it back a little bit too far there. There we go. And we'll put it right there. So you see 897, which is pretty close to where the actual hurricane is. 892 is the pressure. And that puts it right on the coast of Jamaica. This is actually a little bit farther to the east, but still let's kind of concentrate on Cuba and also the Bahamas. You see that pressure doesn't drop a whole lot, still 960s as it gets over to around the Bahamas. So yeah, we're looking at a very, very devastating hurricane, not just for Jamaica, but some of our other islands here, and the halves still had the pressure over 900 millibars. So this is actually a little bit weaker than what it already is. But you can still see we're talking about 940s, 950s on the pressure. That would be a Category 3 to 4 as it makes its way over toward the southern tip of Cuba. And then after that, it's still strong once it gets into the eastern part of the Bahamas. So a lot of folks are going to be watching this very, very closely. I did see some stuff on Facebook and other social media, some people complaining about why people in Jamaica aren't evacuating, like they should be evacuating. Well, there's really not a whole lot of area for them to evacuate. It is an island after all, and they can go into the mountainous regions, but the higher elevation you go, the stronger the winds are going to be. At least you're away from the water. But then at the same time, you've got all the heavy rains that are going to be coming down. And that's going to cause some landslides and mudslides. So there aren't a lot of hiding spaces when it comes to that very small island. You have to remember the entire island of Jamaica is probably about the size of Acadiana south of I-10. So if you take, let's say, Calcasieu, Cameron, Jeff Davis, Vermilion, Acadia, Lafayette, St. Martin, Iberia, and St. Mary, and you put those together, that's about the same land area as what Jamaica is. And it's an island, so there's not a lot of places to evacuate. So they're really going to have to hunker down and unfortunately have to ride this out. Let's look at the Google AI model real quick. And we're just gonna take it through the next couple of hours here, and you see that it still hasn't making landfall as a Category 4, but I think it's going to make landfall as a Category 5, and then it still has it as a Category 4 as it moves over southern parts of Cuba. Storm surge there on that southern coast of Cuba from east of the hurricane over toward Guantanamo Bay is going to be very, very devastating when it comes to a Category 4 hurricane. It'll cross over and lose some of its strength, according to Google AI, and make it into a Category 3 hurricane before it reaches over toward the parts of the Bahamas there. But still, remember, Category 3, that's a major hurricane. And then after that, it starts to pull its way off toward the northeast and eventually off into the middle part of the Atlantic. So it's not just going to be Jamaica that's going to be dealing with this, but it's also going to be Cuba, the Bahamas, and even parts of Haiti and the Dominican Republic and the Turks and Caicos are going to be really under the gun when it comes to this particular hurricane. And I know those folks are going to need help. Not going to specify any charities that are out there, but do try to think about that. If you have the means to help them out, usually money is what these folks are going to need. You can choose the charity of your choice. I'm not going to endorse any of them, but you can choose the charity of your choice or whatever that you can do to help, because this is going to be a global thing that they're really going to need everybody on the planet to help them out in Jamaica, Cuba, Haiti, and also in the Bahamas. Let's do hope that this is the last tropical system of the hurricane season. I certainly do. The forecast earlier in the year, we're calling for 16, 17. It looks like we're going to end up with 13 at the very least. 14 is a normal season. So even though we had a fairly light hurricane season when it comes to the number of storms, having 3 Category 5 hurricanes, and I think we had a Category 4 in there too for a while. So we've had some really strong ones. So the ACE values for this hurricane season are going to be quite high compared to other seasons that didn't have as many tropical systems. So our prayers, our thoughts, everything going out to Jamaica and the northern part of the Caribbean. And again, please think about what you can do to help our friends in the Caribbean. Well, I hope you enjoy Let's Talk Tropics. If you do, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also turn on those notifications. And don't forget, you can hear my forecasts on Big 102.1, Planet Radio 106.7, and Freedom 95.1. I'm home for the rest of the week, so you can catch me at WBRZ Channel 2 on Saturday. We have a great show at 10 o'clock in the morning, including a big LSU sports show. A lot of stuff has happened this week at LSU, as you've probably heard. Our show starts at 10 on Saturday, 9 o'clock on Sunday morning, and then I'll be there on Monday for Tune In, which is from 5 to 9. And I got a link below in the description if you want to check us out, if you don't catch us on TV. Also, please follow my social media pages. I'll have additional hourly updates on Hurricane Melissa as it makes landfall in Jamaica. And thanks to everyone who subscribed to Acadiana Weather Today right here on YouTube. I'm meteorologist Dave Baker. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and I'll see you on Wednesday morning.